it's critical that the Jews must be white, theologically. Because once the Jews are white and they're at the door of the Bible, then anyone who reads this text must read it through the interpretation and the culture of those that are claimed to be Jews. So once the Jews are white, do you have a problem with the white Jesus? Why would you have a problem? It's a rewriting, it's a stealing of black history. Blatant. One of the biggest lies ever told on the face of the earth is that Jews are white. One of the biggest lies ever told historically, academically, ethnographically. Go back and purge through your history books. Find me a white man who was taken as a slave in Israel, from Israel to Egypt, to work to build the pyramids. You must find his real name, Netanyahu. That one is a fake name for Israel. Donald Trump will be successful in America based on one factor, that he represents what they say to each other when we are not there.
Welcome to Mzeik's Kitchen. Mzeik's. What we have for you today is a beautiful ribeye steak with a chimichurri sauce, tender stem broccoli, smashed potatoes with parmesan over the top, and some pizza bread. Please do enjoy.
Broccoli and beef here. Wow. Beautiful.
Straight out of Kenya, from receiving his Best Pan-Africanist Award. You guys already know, Bishop Maponga is here. Shalom.
Shalom, my brother, and greetings.
Ikhutman lam.
I was in town. I said, who called you?
You go to Kenya, you don't bring me along. You go to the caves, you enjoy nature, they're in the water. You don't even say Ntonam.
And the other day, they saw you hugging trees. They said, hey, you left me behind also.
Thank you for joining us for lunch. Hopefully you enjoyed your meal.
No, hey, beautiful. Most beautiful piece of steak I've had in a long time. And well done. And thank you to Mzeik's Kitchen here. And we are still asking as people, hey, no Mzeik's, but we will know one day.
I just want to appreciate the head chef, Mr. Simele Shange Siyabonga. Really nice food here at Mzeik's Kitchen. Mzeik's Kitchen is recorded next to Olivedale Clinic, north of Johannesburg, at the cooking studio. If you'd like to book the cooking studio as well for cooking classes, for those of you guys who are chefs or who are foodies, you can click the link in the description or just Google the cooking studio by the Olivedale Clinic. Congratulations on your Pan-Africanist Award of the Year. I saw you speaking alongside about Dr. Umar Johnson, about Professor Lumumba. We're hosting you in his house. And just enjoy your whole experience in Kenya. It
was a beautiful experience. And I think sharing, cross-pollination, because we are coming in almost like disorganized. You see some pop-ups in Burkina Faso, pop-ups in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, but we've not had a consolidated sort of place where we could start meeting and reorganize. We've had lots of complaints from the young people saying, you as Pan-Africanists, you're working in silos. Each one of you is doing their own thing in their own private space. But I think a program like this gives the community and the continent a meeting of minds where we are sharing ideas and beginning to strategize exactly as to how are we going to take this movement forward. As we believe that as Pan-Africanists, we're not just here to make noise, we're also here to shape the minds of the young people. And others have already started complaining, but why are you not running for president yourself? Why are you not doing it yourself? But it will be, again, running into the same wheel where one person seems to have the idea and the rest of the people are following behind the leader. So now I think the strategy is more towards sharing the information first, sanitizing the environment, both for political and economic transformation. And then after that, we hope that we can begin to have a critical mass, that the change becomes a national, continental change, rather than just an individual passion of what I want to see happening in the continent. We need to share that passion.
Are you healthy? How's the family? How are the children?
Man, I've shedded more than 5 kgs.
I can see you've lost some weight. You're looking good.
I walked up Mount Kenya 14 kilometers.
Yeah.
Carrying 20 kgs on my back. Slept in a cave, to the Mau cave at the foot of Mount Kenya. Bathed in some sacred pools there, sacred waters, and burnt some elephant dung for mosquitoes, and bride meat the Maasai way. You just take a drumstick or a leg of a whole goat and put a stick into it, and then you make it sit on the fire like that, and you spin it every 15, 20 minutes, and man, it was magic. It was maybe 6 of us with a professor from Kenya University there, and some friends from Nakuru, and we had a wonderful time.
And I see you're also joined by a lot of Pan-African scholars, some of them from the US.
Yeah.
I'm a very big fan of Professor Lumumba.
Yeah.
I am a big fan of Dr. Umar.
Oh, I must connect you. Professor. Yeah. We're big friends. We're big friends, and we met up with ambassadors of other Caribbean countries, because we also need to reduce the distance between the Caribbean and Africa, so that we're all one people. And these are our children in diaspora who are suffering seemingly in a different space, but the politics is exactly the same. I mean, as of yesterday and last night, I'm actually consulting for Guyana. They are also going for political elections now in a few months.
Okay.
But they're struggling with an inflated voters register, which is being rigged, and the whole process is flawed. And what we thought were African problems, our brothers and sisters across the Caribbean are suffering almost in the same way. So beginning to share these issues. The Colombia ambassador to Kenya was there. The ambassador also from St. Martin's was there. And the Pan-African movement is alive and well. And the whole idea is to actually consolidate our narrative and make sure that we share with the same voice across the continent and beyond.
I don't know. There's so much to talk about. I don't know where you want us to start today.
At the beginning, go slowly. When you reach the end, you stop.
Let's go slowly. No? Do we start with Kenya? Do we start with the DRC? Do we start with Zimbabwe? Maybe let's start with Zim.
Yeah.
And then we'll end up with South Africa.
We'll end up with Zim. Yeah, last time we met the gold mafias, we were busy making noise in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Only when the story hit Standard Bank, it hit RNB Bank, it hit Old Mutual, it hit Anglo-American, and the real people who are the gold mafias, behind those we thought were the gold mafias, then the story just died and dissipated unceremoniously. But we've always known, as Africans, that we cannot be talking about corruption of 5 million when actually the money on the table is more than 100 billion. And Africans are fighting over morsels of change, as it were, the crumbs of bread. And the real corrupt people are the financial institutions of this world, the insurance companies of this world, the military gun manufacturers of this world, the Soros guys, the Rothschild people, who are sitting on top of the food chain, controlling the politics of the world, deciding who goes into power. And that's where the real mother of corruption is happening. And what we see at the bottom there, a guy being given a car, being given a small little villa to live in France, and some small little loose change dumped into a Mauritius account and some Swiss account, Virgin Islands account. And then the whole African continent goes in shock to say there's some corruption. I mean, who speaks about the 890 billion worth of export smuggled materials and resources that are leaving African borders every year? Who speaks about that? Real corruption. Who speaks about the diamonds that are disappearing in Congo, in Zimbabwe, and in Namibia? Where are they going? And who is eating all these voluminous types of monies? And they're bringing in guns. They give us guns to kill each other. They take the minerals and they go to their own countries. So yes, Zimbabwe, we're doing fine, but not very fine. We're doing fine. And the Zimbabwean problem is an African problem. And I wrote an article this morning, actually, to extrapolate and extend the depth of the problem. And I can only do that from the perspective of the ancient, which I understand very well. In the olden days, when people went to war, they would if you remember Shaka, the Bunganes, in training and preparing Shaka for war and preparation for war. And you go there and you fight and you fight and you fight. In some glimpses, when you watch the movie Ushaka, when the soldiers came back, they'll be sitting at the river there, detoxing. Because when you're at war, you become an animal. You kill people, you do all those things. You almost live like a wild animal. And when you come back, because you've killed people, you've killed animals, you've done things that are despicable during war. When you come back, then we cleanse you, we clean you up. Then we take all these cow horns, we cut them, we stick them on your back to remove, extra energies that are negative. We bath you in sacred waters, we smoke you. Steaming is not new. Put you in these big ndumbas, we smoke you there, we steam you up, we detox and humanize you for 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, in some certain cases, even 6 months or 3 months. Men are there, but you can't touch them. Then food is brought to them. When the cleansers and the priests are happy that mental issues, hallucinations, all these energies have subsided, then there will be a ceremony to introduce the soldiers to their families. And then procreation and normalizing of life would continue from there. And I want us to notice that this psychological process that would happen to put people back in the community. Unfortunately, African liberation heroes, Zimbabwe being one of them, South Africa being one of them, Zambia being one of them, and all of them, straight from war. Straight from war. With your clothes still dripping with blood. And your gun is still dripping with blood. Straight from war into your bedroom. Straight from war into a government office. Straight from war into operation. And then we wonder why there is so much madness amongst the military people. Drunkenness, substance abuse, and worse still, the psychological imbalances that we witness amongst the military people, to an extent that some of them have become literal criminals. Literal criminals. Because the criminality that they were trained to do, if it cannot function, what do? Then if we walk around South Africa, here's some of the biggest hastes that are happening in the country, and proper militarized strategies of robbing banks and etc. It's coming from the military section, including Zimbabwean soldiers, Tswana soldiers, South African soldiers, who know each other from training camps in Mozambique, in Tanzania. They call each other, what's up, nothing's happening, man, and we're poor here with no money. So this element for me remains unresolved, where we have sought to have academic eloquence superseding spiritual preparation, so that a nation can prepare itself for rehabilitation of its own soldiers. And I beg to be corrected, but if I can look with my spiritual eyes, some of the children that were produced out of these soldiers and militarized people, some of them have become drug addicts, some of them have become criminals, some of them have become evil, to an extent that the children that are made by military men who are not spiritually conscious have become a nuisance in the community, to such a sad extent that countries such as Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia, and Malawi, including Tanzania, we cannot run away from the fact that during the liberation struggle, our own brothers who were soldiers, they did atrocious things that we can't talk about, including taking clothes off people, because they didn't have any clothes. In Mozambique, they came here just with a pair of shorts and etc. So they would literally take clothes off people. They would demand that the communities must feed them. So we fed them. I was there. I was a young boy. And we're still, in the evenings, they would ask us to go to such and such a house, collect sister so-and-so, collect girls for them. And they raped these women. Children were made. And all of a sudden, these war veterans want to walk around and say, we liberated the country. And I look them straight in the eye and say, which country did you liberate? Because the common people, that's where the war was fought. The Smith regime did not trust us because these were their children. The liberation heroes did not trust us because they say we're sellouts to the other side. So you find that lots of sellouts were killed. Mothers were raped. Sisters were raped. Their children that are in African countries where liberation struggles were heavy. And those crimes have not been faced. And now I look at some of our war veterans like in Zimbabwe, beginning to say, we want to move from Nangago out, we want to do this. And they say, guys, I'm not interested in this petty politics. I'm interested in the entire Zimbabwe National Army with the intelligence that goes with it. That with the thirst of killing and guns, you have not stopped. Because this thing was never taken out of your system. At the end of the day, we're being led, in some certain cases, by social maniacs who can't sleep, who are heavy on whiskeys and brandies to suppress the hallucinations of war over and above the enemy that they were killing. But some of them became selfish and started killing innocent people. And we know as Africans, and we cannot lie, that you cannot be coming out from such an environment and you think all will be well. And I think this is a message to all African leaders out there, that in the midst of you doing parliamentary procedures, getting excited about your new buildings and buying yourselves cars and showcasing your affluences with state assets, don't forget that some of the basic things have not been attended to, and it is your mental health as military people, as CIOs, as soldiers, as police, that this blood which was being spilled, and in some certain cases continuously is being spilled in the name of political suppression. We may undermine the source, which is actually an unstable spirituality of a country. And I think Zimbabwe is in that state. Being a spiritual vortex, I think our leadership is enjoying the glory and the glamour of people clapping hands behind them. But at the bottom of this, we look at these presidents, we look at these generals, and we can tell that they are troubled souls because they've not attended to the basic things to seek for unity. This includes even the Matabeleland issue that is still outstanding. The murders that happened there, which no one wants to talk about. But people in power, what do you lose? Just to drop the flags for 3 months? Commemorate all those that died? Build monuments? Call for celebrations? Put it aside. Set up a trust for those that were victimized and children for school fees to be paid. Activate economic development in the places that were heavily affected. Name schools after the heroes that died, and etc. Put an end to it. And silence 45 years later, 45 years later, you have this simmering pot of anger that has not been resolved. So I think that justice is being overplayed in the hands of mercy. It has actually resulted in it looking like cruelty.
Are you frustrated with the Zimbabwean politics currently?
It is polarized on immaterial conversations. People are so excited to talk about Zimbabwean politics as of, let's change a leader, let's put this on, let's put it. But no one is willing to address the real issues as to what is it. And I think Mugabe left a big hole in the room where he sat on this thing and oppressed it and pressed it down that no one could talk about it. So even up to now, people are scared of starting to even mention and talking about Gukurahundi. And while we're talking about Gukurahundi, we are not forgetting that Mzilikazi himself has also his swords that are dripping with blood in South Africa. From Kobulawayo, right in Melmoth, through Mpumalanga. You can ask King Nyabela himself. Right in Randburg here, Mhlakeni. Mega trails into Kimberley, the Khoisan, into Botswana. The Botswana people, when he entered Zimbabwe, the Nambias, the Karangas, the Vendas, and the Karangas all faced the sharp spear of Mzilikas, who had taken the killing military strategy from Shaka, the short spear and the big shield. So they would come there and plunder and plunder and plunder. And now when you hear them singing their praise songs, hey, wena wadla, wabulala, wakala nyimbe zamatota, kwasha wakwima, and you are singing all these praises, and you forget, what about the children of the people that died at the hands of your swords? Now you want to start another country in Zimbabwe. You call it Mtwagazi. Without attending to some of these issues. So kufana kube nenkonzo lezi sibu, and I might sound a bit old, but kufana ukekeza umkhondo. We must have a ceremony in African countries where we can wash our spears, and we cannot continuously sing our praises of war and military powers and prowess over the lives of those that we killed. And we think that the children, I heard this story from my own grandfather. I'm not hearing stories. That when Mzilikazi and his soldiers, Bolo Bengola, came in, they plundered cattle, they took women, they took children, killed the men. My grandfather says his grandmother put him in a basket and they ran up to the mountains. Some people even call it derogative because they said while the Shonas were running away, that's where the name came. Amashona, and you have this history that it looks at, and now when the Shonas that were seemingly victimized in the previous generation by those that had better weapons get into power, and they also have better weapons. So when will this cycle of violence stop? Because one generation, when it gets better guns, it kills another. Are we not studying the Hutus and the Tutsis? Are we not studying this cycle of violence? That even now, the Afrikaners, who could have been able to walk through South Africa with guns and shooting and etc. Now that Africans have guns, we are talking about farm killings. But if we could do a proper statistics and say, from where you started to where the farmers' killing is happening now, can we consolidate the file? That how many people died this way? How many whites have died this way? And we come up to some consensus. We would then begin to respect each other and learn that violence cannot build a nation. We need to find each other, apologize to each other where need be, pay restitution, and make peace with all men. Because every generation that is victimized tells its children, it is those ones. It is those ones. And when those ones finally have weapons, look at the Hutus and the Tutsis. You oppress them for such a long time. The day they have weapons, they wipe all of you out. And those ones also will wait. 40, 50, 60 years later, when they also have weapons, they'll come and wipe you off. And until we learn the ways of peace, these guns are going to make us as cruel as the white people that oppressed us have made us to be. It's not even Zimbabwe's problem, it's African problems. Where I think that we can use maybe a medical term to explain this. Where if someone has got a wound that is there and the wound is soiled, the best way is not to bandage it and cover it up like there's nothing that is happening. In the proper medical spaces, is to open up that wound, clean it up, put some salt onto it or some oils on it, and by the time you're bandaging it, you know that it's on its way to recovery. And I think that this political conversation has just been wrapped up under lots of bandages. And every time they feel like it's smelling again, add more bandages and put some perfume around it. But at the bottom of that are unresolved social issues. And even the Ndebele in Zimbabwe, when Mzilikazi came, he came with those Abasenkla, who are the core, who are the Kumalos, the Mabenas, the Masukus, and who are the real core, hardcore Zulus. When they came to KwaNdebele, then they included the other tribes, Boskosana, who are Ndebeles, then they included the Tswanas. And then when they came to Zimbabwe, the local people, they call them Mamahole, which are the dirty ones. Okay? So even in their own hierarchy, they already had some segregative Zulu, deep-seated undermining of other nations, that we cannot be ruled by his Luanyana. That kind of mindset.
Is that where the animosity or the tension between the Shonas and the Ndebeles come from?
It's deep. That's where it sits. That even when Nkomo was now trying to negotiate with Mugabe, the hardcore Ndebeles actually called him a sellout, because now he's negotiating with a weaker race. They cannot be ruled by a weaker race. You cannot come to a country where you find other people living, and because of your military power at that moment, you think that you can overshadow the entire politics and rewrite it to fulfill your own bigotry of where you're coming from with your ethnic superiority of another nation. Now, this weak nation, this Amashona, this Amashina, these weak people are now in power. And they say, but no, Zimbabwe, this is our history. This is our land. In as much as Lobengula negotiated with Sisi John Rhodes and the rest to rewrite the narrative, but now we want to rewrite that narrative ourselves and tell you exactly what happened. That whole story, the whole of Matebele, don't want that story to be spoken. They only want to talk about Gukurahundi going that way. But no one wants to talk about before Gukurahundi, what happened and what could have been. I'm not saying it's the only cause. What could have been some of the precipitating factors that caused the Gukurahundi? Of course, Zipra is involved, which is the Ndebele side, which was sponsored partly by the Ndebele, but by the British, which was a way of controlling the ZANU-PF. And except so you already have the international playing into that space. And the Zipra soldiers were much more better trained than the ZANLA, than the Zimbabwe National Army, as we the ZANU people. And in the midst of that tension, when ZANU went into power, whether the ZANU-PF went into power by the British help also, because when Mugabe was released from prison, he was sent to Mozambique, escorted by the MI16, by the British, and put there to run ZANU-PF, not as one of the ZANU-PF leaders, but actually as an infiltration of the British government, not trusting Tongogara, who was a radical, like Chris Hani. So they said, no, if this one gets into power, Zim will not be well. So now we must also look at ZANU-PF in the eyes and say, but who killed Chitepo? It was ZANU-PF leaders who are there right now in Zimbabwe. Who killed Tongogara? It was ZANU-PF, with the assistance, of course, of the outsiders. And they're still there in power. So by the time Mugabe comes into power, he's not coming truly as a legitimate ZANU-PF leader, but also as a default. I cannot speak much about South African politics because I'm here. But you find that this element of swinging a more sober, neutral person to take over power rather than the far left, which did not want to compromise, the Joe Slovos, the Chris Hanis, you can mention all those people that really died in the prisons and etc., who were not tolerating vis-a-vis those that were allowed to rule because they were tolerating. So are we going to be looking at African politics constantly working with those that tolerate oppression, or the legitimacy of those that really want change for their people? So what went wrong? It's not what went wrong. It is this default that we are looking at, where those that went into power are the milder version of the real cries and the pains of the people. And it's not only Zimbabwe. SWAPO is the same thing. Botswana is the same thing. South Africa is the same thing. Zambia is the same thing. And Zimbabwe falls in the same space. So we have a more sanitized government that does not want to deal with African problems, economic problems, where the EFF and the MKs are coming in to say, but this thing is not working. And it will not work until Africans begin to take the Donald Trump position. America comes first. And we must also say, like Trump, Africa comes first. So what has happened? Our military generals, with the government instruments in their hands, have become the sole beneficiaries of the economic system to benefit themselves and their families and their comrades and etc. And at the core of this, today I'm speaking on behalf of the common people who fought for the liberation of the country, on whose backs and wombs and stomachs the war was fought, who are now being neglected, while we see the opulence of a few politically connected people looting state assets into personal aggrandization. I don't have a problem with legitimate business people who are making the economy move forward. But with these rogue elements that are seemingly to be glorified, but we know that these are actually criminals and thieves of the system.
The Zimbabwean gold coin, how far is that process going?
It went on, it met some resistance along the way, because now the printing of the local money was going to cause again some inflation. So it's there, but they're releasing the Zimbabwe dollar slowly into the market for fear again that the fuel market, we have a small economy, and the printing of excess of Zim dollars will actually be falling in the hands of money recyclers again. And so I think the government is rather working very cautiously to release that money into the market. But as it were, we are running on an American dollar economy right now, with the change coming in slowly into the. But after 25 years of sanctions, we cannot be excited overnight to say, let's flood the market with our money. Otherwise, inflation will wake up tomorrow morning and get it. It will be a waste of time having trillions of Zim dollars in your pocket. You can't even buy a loaf of bread. So I think gently they are introducing the money, but the coins are there. Some people have bought. I was hoping to buy mine. I've not yet been able to access it, but I've allocated some money already to buy my own Zim coins and keep my money in real gold rather than in paper money.
You've just bought, I think, over 20-something hectares.
Yeah.
But I know you didn't ask me to broadcast it on camera, but I always feel proud when an African buys some African land.
Yeah, I mean, buying for me was the best option because there are these ones that people are being given and people are using political connections to again, I think to a certain extent, it's an insult to the community that you give a police commissioner or an army general 500 hectares of land. And he can't even look after 10 cattle on that land. He's just sitting on it. And there are people who have real resources who can convert these pieces of land into active agricultural projects. And I think the government has already started doing an inventory and an assessment of the farms to see utilization of the land. And some of those people that got those pieces of land are beginning to lose them because the government is coming and say, I think on the 500, you can only utilize 25. So they're now allocating the 25 and the other 475, they've cut them into 25 pieces each and allow other people to start participating. So I think slowly the land reform program will begin to see some of those pieces of land falling into the right hands that can utilize it. But on mine, it's in Beatrice, just a few kilometers out of Harare. I want to build a cultural center where the community can come and experience farmers of thought in its raw form, raw food, raw herbs, raw dances, instrument manufacturing, cultural and traditional interactions, weddings, ceremonies, rituals, and just real. I want to become real. I want to even create a place where children can be born naturally. No vaccinations, no traditional midwives. I want to see something with these children that will have no nothing put in them. I want to hear them talking. I want to see them grow. I want just to see something. It will be almost like an experiment on TV, but it's something that I'm willing to risk my life to say, even if I can produce 10 children that are free off, and give them a head start into life. I want to see something. In another 50, 60 years, I want these children to talk to each other uncontaminated. No fuzzy drinks, no what. Just give another generation an opportunity to experience life in its rawness. So that's what I want to do on that farm there. And I'll get a few helpers around, doctors and other people, just to make sure that we're in alignment with the government. But if someone is not sick, why treat them?
Kagame, Rwanda, DRC, the president just, I don't want to say he curved, but we've just heard that he's willing to have that conversation with Donald Trump. And he's willing to say, okay, come, let's do a minerals deal.
Yeah, the Congo issue, again, people must not look at short-term solutions to a long-term problem. You know that there are Hutus and Tutsis in Uganda. There are Hutus and Tutsis in Burundi. There are Hutus and Tutsis in Rwanda. There are Hutus and Tutsis in Congo. So as you are coming from Uganda and Tanzania also, you want to look at that whole belt that is going through the Great Lake region, touching into Congo, into Tanzania and Kenya, and walking straight into Rwanda. That whole belt is full of this mixture of this breed of people. When colonization happened, as we discussed the other day, people took a ruler and just drew lines across those territories. So you'll find that the same tribe is on this side and the same tribe is on this side. It's a typical Botswana here in Rustenburg and Botswana in Gaborone. It's a typical of vendors in
Limpopo
and vendors in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
The Tsongas in in Swaziland, the Tsongas in South Africa, the Tsongas in Zimbabwe, and the Tsongas in Mozambique. Now, if they had been wise enough, the idea would have been when you are drawing and dividing countries, you want to look at where are the boundaries of these nations. In the few weeks ago, of course, the Sutus in KZN, the Sutus in Harrismith, the Sutus with Tabelo, Tababsihu, and the Sutus in Lesotho. And the Sutus are saying, but and it's a legitimate conversation. And the South African government cannot bury its head in the sand and try to play into the colonial narrative that South Africa is where the white people put the borders. But you know very well that Mshweshwe was pushed to the mountains by the Boers. And then they met that river. When he rolled stones on them, then they said, you stay across the river, don't cross over here. But Ntawabasihu and Tabanchu and all these places are shrines which belong to Mshweshwe. And so when you look in, for us to understand the Congo, we need to understand exactly what's happening here at home. That if now Basotho can say we want our land back, it will be very interesting to see how the South African government will react to a cultural imbalance which hangs on the necks of colonial history.
There is that conversation.
It is already happening.
The Basutus in Lesotho are saying some of the land in the Free State, some of the land in KZN is our land. We want our land back.
Now imagine the Basutus that are in Tababsihu being killed by South Africans and being told, go back home. And they ask you a question, where is home? We've never lived in Maseru. We've lived here. So the political demarcations of Lesotho is over there, South Africa is over here, does not affect us because we've always been here. So by pushing us either to say, go back to Lesotho, and we are saying our home is here, it cannot be legitimate. Similarly, so the Basutus in Lesotho being chased away, let's say beginning to say, no, but your tribe is across the border there. You must go and join them that other side. This is the kind of politics you find yourself playing into the Congo space, where the Hutus and the Tutsis that are in Congo, because it's at the border of Rwanda, now they're being told, you must go back home to Rwanda. Or those on this side, they want to leave this side. But because Congo is so big, the developments around Goma have been very slow. But Goma is next door to Rwanda. So Goma has been a border of trade, of all illegal minerals. We are not even scared to say it now, that Rwanda's economy is actually built on the minerals of Congo. They were sanitized in Rwanda on their way out. Kagame maximized on those minerals and their abundance to build his country. So now, the M23, yes, we cannot say that they are Rwanda-sponsored, but they found sympathy in Rwanda simply by nationality. They're Tutsis and they're Tutsis. And they're saying, but we have lived here. This is where it becomes complex. We have lived here. And because Kinshasa is so far, why can't we rule ourselves here and govern ourselves? And of course, Kagame was more sympathetic in terms of assisting. Museveni, sympathetic in terms of assisting. And of course, you look at the family dynamics, the wife of Museveni, the wife of Kagame, and etc. And they're relatives, blood relatives. And Kagame actually having worked as a military intelligence officer for Museveni. So that whole politics in that region has got very interesting dynamics. But at the core of it, I think it is the disrespect of our modern governments to undermine the local people in exaltation of the colonial borders that were built. And these borders have actually created enmities between people. And that war will not end because people will not move from the land of their ancestors in the name that political borders were drawn by colonialists.
Is it a good idea for the president to think about instilling peace by inviting Donald Trump to do a minerals deal?
It's a temporal solution, but knowing the appetite of the Americans, they will not stop fighting Congo until they get what they want. So for the time being, because of the weakness of the government, I would actually think it's a better strategy. But had African Union been more healthy, I just don't know how I can send this message across, had the chairman of SADC, Mnangagwa, the chairman of COMESA, Ruto, the chairman of ECOWAS, and of course our new baby on the block, Traore. 10,000 soldiers each, and walk to Congo. Could silence that war by ourselves. The One Africa Army concept, that's where it comes into place, that we need all our national armies put together to make one big army. Now put all those weapons together. Let's protect the African borders rather than protecting them from each other. Because I think that's a bigger agenda right now, where abuse is happening because of the smallness of countries. You can't expect a country like Lesotho to protect itself with less than 900,000 people. Botswana to muscle up against China, 1.4 billion people, and you are 1.1 million people. It doesn't make sense. Economically, it does not make sense. Hence, we think that the Chinese are a nuisance. They're not a nuisance. They are more, and they are more resourced than we are. And this thing of thinking that we are countries, we are continuously going to suffer as individual countries, whereas in the unity of our Africans, we're able to work together and protect ourselves against our enemies rather than killing each other. So it's a temporal solution, but the problem is quite a long-term solution, because America sooner or later must learn to mind its own business and allow Africa to compete honestly at the international market at the value of our resources.
There's a lot of money there. There's a lot of minerals there in the DRC. What do you think is Trump's long game?
Trump's long game is less to do with Congo, but it has more to do with China. Because I think America is losing its grip on the international political terrain. And Congo becomes very critical because of the production that is happening in America in terms of the jobs that Trump would want to create, the resources that they would want, Elon Musk's ambitious tasks of going to the moon, the availability of uranium, platinum, lithium, and not to mention, of course, cobalt and Coltrane and some of the Apple companies that are manufacturing cell phones, not forgetting the steel industry in terms of car manufacturing, which I heard Trump saying we're going to put the car industry back into. So he is talking like that. But when you take his words into policy, then where are you going to get the resources? Russia has closed its doors. It was one of the biggest suppliers of steel. Canada is tiptoeing around the power and energy treaties. They're saying, you're not going to mistreat us. They put on tariffs, say we are retaliating. So who is the weakest link where you can get the raw materials and still continue to be good on your word? That you've already told the Americans. So surely Congo is becoming as a rescue package to allow the Americans to loot Africa again and feed in the market of their manufacturing and create more jobs for themselves. But I wonder if Americans will come with money to Congo or they're coming with guns. I wonder if they are coming to Congo to buy resources or they're offering protection. And while they're offering protection, they're looting.
In exchange.
This is Libya. We're not new. This is Afghanistan. We're not new. This is Vietnam. We're not new. This is Syria. We're not new to the American techniques of saying we'll give you security, but that security comes at a cost. So if Americans were coming to Congo with a business deal, not of security, no, a business deal of transaction and development like China. At least, even if we know Chinese are thieves, but put a road at least, put a bridge, build an airport, put some infrastructure at least, put a hospital over there. Don't just tell me that I'm going to be holding a gun to make sure that the Chinese don't come in here. But why the Chinese are not coming in here? You are doing exactly what the Chinese have been doing, which is looting for materials. And unless Americans have changed their ways, but I doubt it, 280 years later, I think the Americans are entrenched in their stealing campaign and their slavery mindset. It will be very surprising to see Donald Trump's policies changing towards Congo in the 21st century.
They talk about the PayPal mafia and they talk about Elon Musk being in Donald Trump's ear. Who's the real president? Is it Elon Musk? Do two bulls in one crawl end up becoming too big for each other? Does their relationship last long? How does it look like
You can never,
in the long term?
when when someone is a thief, you never close your eyes when you're shaving each other's heads off.
Yeah.
But one thing I know as a principle is that politics is a prostitute of economics. So most likely the one who has got money will determine the direction of the politics.
Because people are saying around Trump, there's like 3 former South Africans: David Sachs, Elon Musk, and
I saw that article.
Mr. Hendrik Verwoerd's grandson. I forgot his name. Anyway, yeah, and no. It would be great for us as South Africans having Elon Musk if he was pro-South African and he was more sympathetic towards our past.
I think that was quite a beautiful gift for the Americans from the African soil. And but whether it is a good gift for South Africa to have here, I wonder. Because what happens is that when you grow up in a colonial state and your mind is brainwashed to always have the them and us mindset, and the superiority works on you, when money comes, it only exaggerates that behavior. And I think we're beginning to see that in Elon Musk, that you could be African, but you're not African.
But the arrogance.
You don't have the slightest sympathy, love, passion, even basic understanding of fundamental issues such as land dispossession and colonization. For you to stand up and ill-advise the President of America on the land issues in South Africa to such an extent that you allow the President to make such a grave international relations mistake of lying to the world that there are atrocities that are happening in South Africa, the abuse of white farmers and what. And who can send him a clip of the white farmer who killed 2 black people and fed them to the pigs? He was crying in court, I think 2 days ago. Who can send him that clip and say, if you're talking about... And I'm not saying there are no problems on the ground. There are problems on the ground, but they must be dealt with as problems. But to sugarcoat them and exaggerate them, and that, I think that was quite irresponsible.
Is Elon Musk ill-informed or is he intentional? Because he's got a bigger agenda.
There are 2 ways of looking at it. One way could just be pure ignorance. Pure ignorance. As rightfully put, Donald Trump, I don't like him, but I think he represents something. Donald Trump will be successful in America based on one factor, that he represents the deep white capitalists, the deep white separatists, what they say to each other when we are not there. He represents, and same thing to Afrikaners here. It's one thing to say, 100 million, fine. I'm not putting everyone in one blanket. But there's a group of Afrikaners in the White Forum, in the Afriforum, and some of those in the Orania mindset, when they are by themselves, away from us, and you hear what they say in the privacy of their own homes, they represent what Afriforum is doing. And those are the funders of Afriforum. And similarly so in America, we may think that Donald Trump is halfway between there and there, but I think fundamentally he represents that. And when he is ill-advised, Elon Musk and Trump become cousins because their orientation, their worldview, their perception of the black problem, black poverty, and black suffering. They were educated by the same teacher of separatists, colonialism, and apartheid. So they are friends, fundamentally. Even if they don't meet eye to eye, but after they've finished quarreling, they are taught and educated in the very same format. There are 2 computers, basically, that are programmed by the same person.
And they're both very close friends of Netanyahu.
We must find his real name, Netanyahu. That one is a fake name for Israel. He's got his real European name because he's not a Jew. You heard me? Google it up. What is Netanyahu's real name? He's a converted, they were converted, these Turkish, and in the book, The 13th Tribe by Ford, you'll actually find some of this information readily available.
It was common practice for Zionist immigrants at the time to adopt a Hebrew name. Nathan Mileikovsky began signing some of the articles he wrote. Netanyahu, the Hebrew version of his name, and his son adopted this and his family name. So his real name is Nathan Mileikovsky. I didn't know this. Okay.
Part of learning and growing.
So his real name is Nathan,
Yeah.
not Benjamin.
Now we go.
His real surname is Mileiskovsky, not Netanyahu. Why would they change their name though?
To adapt to the Hebrew Jewish narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And somebody posted a video of, I think it was in 17 or 1800s, of an old movie of people that lived in Jerusalem at the time. And most of them were black people.
You can Google again the Egyptian prime minister who says he's not going to accept Jerusalem as it is right now. Because when the blacks left, when the Israelis left here, they were black. Now they came back white. So he's not going to recognize that.
So what do you want me to Google?
You can Google the Egyptian president who refused to accept the white Jews. So they left here as black. Now they're coming back as white. So when did the Jews become white? Because the Fertile Crescent sits on the Platonic stone of Africa, literally. It's impossible that white people can come out of Israel. But of course, to fit with the United Nations narrative of reclaiming the 1946, 47 treaties of giving Israelis back their land, then you find these white people, these converted Ashkenazis who converted into Judaism, claiming to be Hebrews and Jews.
Why would they do that though?
It's a religious benefit. It's a religious benefit. Again, it plays into the white supremacy narrative that they are the chosen people. And because they are chosen people, it resuscitates and sanitizes all white people. It's critical that the Jews must be white, theologically. Because once the Jews are white and they're at the door of the Bible, then anyone who reads this text must read it through the interpretation and the culture of those that are claimed to be Jews. So once the Jews are white, do you have a problem with the white Jesus? Why would you have a problem? It's a rewriting, it's a stealing of black history. Blatant. One of the biggest lies ever told on the face of the earth is that Jews are white. One of the biggest lies ever told historically, academically, ethnographically. Go back and purge through your history books. Find me a white man who was taken as a slave in Israel, from Israel to Egypt, to work to build the pyramids. White people, slaves in Egypt. And Moses came to redeem white people.
In 1958, President Nasser of Egypt said of the Jews, they left here black and came back white. What did he really mean though? They say he meant the truth. Millions of modern Jews are either converts or light-skinned mixed race people who don't fit the description of the earliest inhabitants of Israel.
It is two ways. He said that he is saying that when they left Egypt, they left here as blacks. But now he's being told to recognize them in Israel, and they're all white. So how did the transformation happen? That a black nation ended up as a white nation. But this is theological bigotry and mischief, where academic institutions of theology have allowed to whitewash the Bible and whitewash the theology to fit into the colonial narrative.
The ancient Middle East was first settled by Hamitic people, including the Cushites. The legendary ruler, Cushite king Nimrod, the Ethiopian, is immortalized in geographic and place names like Nimrod Fortress, Nimrod Fortress Castle in Israel.
The Hyksos. There was actually a period of the whitening, you can even research on that also, the whitening of Egypt. Where
Say that again?
the whitening of Egypt.
The white?
Whitening.
Whitening, okay.
Whitening of Egypt,
Yeah.
where actually the Hyksos were defeated, and the light in complexion Arabs started taking all the black Hyksos as slaves and pushed them out of royalty, and now started having them white. Now, when you walk around Egypt, it looks like it's a white country, when actually there was a process of the whitening of Egypt and the extermination of the black Hyksos, and hence the removal of the nose of all the statues to not show that the history that was here was of the flat-nosed people rather than the sharp-nosed people who are now claiming history as theirs.
The whitening of Egypt is a controversial idea that has been used to claim that ancient Egypt was a white civilization. However, mainstream Western scholars reject the idea. The idea that ancient Egypt was white or black is considered anachronistic by Western scholars. They argue that applying modern racial concepts to ancient Egypt is incorrect. Scholars also reject the idea that ancient Egypt was racially homogeneous. Instead, they believe that skin color varied between people from Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt, and Nubia. The controversy over the racial identity of Egypt has continued into the modern era.
And why again, let's put these two arguments back to back. Number one, you have a religious argument, which gives you the white people as Jews. Number two, you have an academic argument, which is now trying to exterminate the black history and make it white. So see what's happening here. Academically, by claiming the history of Egypt as white history, you have been able to remove black people away from innovation, from academics, from history, as the originators and the most ancient civilization on the face of the earth. You claim that history, make Cleopatra white woman, make the pharaohs white people, make Moses taking the Israelites out of Egypt, make them white. That whole movie, rubbish, scandalous narratives. So by taking away our history and by sitting at the door of religion, you are able to brainwash people that they're inferior to you because their civilization, without them, there's no civilization. Without them, there's no salvation. So the white people become the gatekeepers of your economy, your history, and your religious expression. It can't be more blatant than that. A person who steals your car is much better, Sbu, than a person who steals your identity. At a moment of your unconsciousness, I come and I change your name. When you wake up, I give you a wrong name. And you can never trace again who you are. That's cruel. That's cruel that you will walk past your mother's house and you will not recognize her. Because I took advantage when you were not conscious. That I make you hate your own brother. That's cruel. Because I'm withholding information from you to tell you that this is your blood brother. Now, stealing identity cannot be more gruesome than that.
Still on that conversation, why is there what they call the Black Madonna all over Europe? What is the Black Madonna?
The history of worshipping mother and child has its origins within the Egyptian space, where the birth even of the Messiah itself, Mary, has still been preserved as a black woman. So the Mary, the Madonna, is black, literally. In Russia the other day, is it a year ago, when Russia actually released all those pictures, most ancient pictures of the drawings of Jesus and his disciples, and they're all black. And the whole world caught a fit of rage. That how could you be releasing such pictures? But if these are the oldest pictures of the drawings of Jesus that are all in black, then where did the white ones come from? So is there some historicity, accuracy in those paintings that are depicting a different painting altogether to a religious bigotry on the other side? The answer is yes. So the oldest pictures of something could be the most likely, the closest representation of what you're trying to talk about. So yes, Madonna is black. These are the Madonnas that we are seeing around, these Marys that we are seeing that are white. They just whitewashed the religious expressions. But if you're supposed to look at it from the historical perspective, then the black color becomes much more mature. And I was laughing this morning, actually, a research that has just come out from China, and I'm glad it's coming out from China, a slightly neutral corner, where the zebra, black and white fish, and the non-striped fish are seen together, and this is what guy is doing a research to see how did this fish lose its skin and the mutations and what. And actually the research concluded that the striped fish, the zebra striped fish, are the more original than. Then they studied the mutation and to come up with a conclusion actually that says, if we could crack it on the fish, now we know, finally, how the white people became white by mutation. But it's a whole fresh research. I was just reading it this morning, that finally, before I die, we are going to make one big announcement to all white people out there that you are our children. Not only our children, the Kenyan woman gene, which is 200 and what million years old.
The Eve gene, right?
The mutation of that gene is found in all races. So she remains the mother.
All of us.
So stop talking nonsense. And I don't know why people want to celebrate the whiteness of the Bible instead of celebrating the originality of the text, which is black, which is African. And this is maybe what turned me off away from the Bible, because it looks like they're more interested in the white culture rather than they're interested in the historicity of the text itself. Scholars, educated scholars, don't want to look at this subject with no emotions, with no whitewashed minds, but just to study it as a subject and present truth as is. No, would rather be preaching the gospel of the missionaries that constantly seeks to make black people less of who they really are, which is unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
I've also seen videos of, it's not the current Pope, may he get well, because I know he's fighting for his life, but previous popes, and those are old videos. How do you explain them having to kneel down to African leaders who would visit Rome? They would kneel down and kiss their feet. What does that mean?
They know what we don't know. They know what we don't know. Rome is built on stolen history. Rome is built on guilt. Rome was collecting taxes, slaves, tithe, and from Africans. They are guilty of their crimes. And unknown to the African leaders, they accept the homage of apology, which comes with no restitution and payment of the crimes that were committed. So they are conducting a religious act of humbling themselves to those that they've injured, without the injured knowing why they're doing it. So Bashir and other guys, they just look at their big heads from Sudan, and they watch these guys kissing their feet, and they think that they're most important in all. But it's an act of religious expression that we wronged these people, and we must be humbling ourselves before them. So I think within that space, the Caribbean space is beginning to discuss altogether the issues of restitution, reparations for the slave trades, because for the slave trade to happen, it is the Catholic Church that actually wrote the letters approving their church members to go and conquer new worlds, and even named those societies as they would bring back tithe and offerings to Rome. So basically Rome was built on South African ivory and gold, and Zimbabwean gold and ivory, the Caribbean, etc. So the entire colonization paid tribute and homage into the Catholic Church. And when the Catholic bishops kneel down, I think it is a fake example of piety. In essence, they must own up to the responsibility of their plunder.
But if they look like they're paying homage, why would they be so strict in not returning our original African artifacts, and including even after the Queen had passed, our diamonds are still there in those museums?
Maybe it has not been discussed. Maybe not. Hence, we always, in the Pan-African space, advocate for an informed politician, an informed African youth, who then applies their mind to the real issues that are at stake, so that we can begin to have a conversation at a level at which we would want. Here we are, for example, in South Africa. Sarah Baartman, for example, and the atrocities that happened here. We're looking at the Cullinan diamond that is there. Maybe only now, Sbumi, and you can understand why our presidents, after we elect them, they must go to Britain and shake hands. Maybe I don't know what they got there to do. But maybe if they did not go there, they would have a different narrative. But maybe they go there to be told, well, don't touch Kruger National Park. Don't touch this, don't touch this. The Queen has got land there, she's got this and this. And Victoria Falls, please don't change. It's named after Queen Victoria. It is a commemoration. We'll pay you so much money to maintain this and that. I don't know what happens. I've never been there. But it looks like every time one of us goes there, they come back and they are just wishy-washy about the critical issues that we need transformation on. It could be for the reason that the shaking of the Queen's hand and the King's hand has to do with protecting the legacies of colonization. And so also does the shaking of the Pope's hand has to do with pacifying. What do you want? You want hospitals? Okay, here's some few millions. Whether those millions reach us or not, it's another story. Amen. I laughed my lungs out when Trump said, and 6.8 million for Lesotho, for gay and lesbian and sponsorships. And no one knows where Lesotho is. No one knows. And the Lesotho government then reiterated and says, hey, we heard you say you sent 6.8 million here. We never saw it. Where is it? So, someone between Trump and the ex-prime minister and the NGOs, they must explain because this is blood, black, dirty money which was supposed to be used for certain things. But apparently it never reached the sources. And you begin to have a certain appreciation that international politics has its ways around African politics and manipulate it for the direction in which they want to drive. Yeah.
And as some South Africans say, Guti, as much as they're saying that US...
They sent some, yeah, there's a budget also that came to South Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who took it?
Apparently they say that money, as much as it was cut off, millions of people suffering with HIV will get affected, etc. But they're saying big chunks of that money was not reaching the people on the ground.
Who was eating that money? Maybe we must do. Maybe this is the real Zondo Commission. We need Zondo now to come out from the closet and come and tell us, Hori, this 8-something million which we hear from America now that some money was sent here for these activities. Who were the recipients of these monies? But I thought that was quite low for US aid to literally sponsor social collapse in other countries in the name of aid. I thought that was quite low. Education is fundamental prior to consciousness of the continent. And why I like Yusbu, one reason is your individual pursuit of your own identity. This is your journey, which you are walking by yourself. Don't worry about those that don't understand you. They will catch up. If they are on the same road, they will catch up. But you can't always be waiting for everybody to say, yes, sir, and then we move forward. Those that have understood, those that are conscious must begin moving forward. And we hope that as we are moving forward and we are collecting more of our young people, sooner or later, amongst us who are now conscious, imagine if Steve Biko was still alive now and we were looking for a president, who would we vote for? Imagine if Chris Hani was alive right now and we were looking for a president, who would we vote for? Now we know what we lost. But the question is, how can we and how will we develop a similar mindset? And we're hoping that this same quality of thought, mind, passion will make its way to instruments of power. And when we get there, I like what Boko was saying the other day, the president of Botswana. He said we must not look at these institutions with respect. We must disrespect them. What did he mean by that? That if you over-respect them, you will worship them and think that they must not be transformed. You go there with disrespect over the institutions so that you can transform them and put respectable leadership in it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with bureaucratic systems that are there to be worshipped, the judiciary, the presidency, and etc. So these become institutions by themselves that now need you to venerate around them without transforming the very essence of their function. And I think this is where we are at, where we hope that sooner or later we can begin to attract a quality of young people, a quality of middle-aged people who make their ways into councillors, into political leaders, into MPs. And we hope that when they get there, they will not do the very same thing which the same old people have been doing in terms of feeding their stomachs and sacrificing their own community. Until that happens, we're going to end up with one revolutionary leader there, and immediately he stands up too tall, we're going to get him killed. Another Gaddafi is gone. Another one stands up there, going to be killed. Another Sankara is gone. Stand up there, another one bites the dust. And constantly, they will wait for us to groom. Immediately the person is groomed, knock him off the race. And what do you lose? Like even in South Africa, honestly, what do you lose? What do you lose for taking Malema, for example, and put him in the Department of Land Distribution? If there is a commissioner, then balance him up with other leaders. Take the radical left, the radical right. This is what tables are all about. Then we know as people that we are represented. Even if we don't get the full deal, it's like in a mining negotiation. If we send out the best amongst us, abu yati how much is Zamil? Men 25%, I could have told you 18. But I tried. It gives us a sense of comfort. Now you cannot exclude those that have voices that are contrary to the majority. And then you make decisions from there. You're creating mistrust amongst the people. So we needed to start mobilizing, educating. That's the direction of the Pan-African. Where are we going from here? More education, more training, more information. People might say whatever they want to say. You're making too much noise. You what? I'm not even bothered. We are going to send as much. In fact, we are in the business of colonizing Africans with African thoughts. We cannot even shy away from that. We need to recolonize ourselves. Toxic ourselves with our culture. Toxic ourselves with our food and with our ideologies. Sell these things about our marriages and about our culture and practices and rewrite this on the DNA of the next generation to make sure that we don't have to become slaves ever again. Because as long as our culture is taken by the other, we are constantly going to become subjects of conversations rather than becoming the owners of the narrative. Footnotes on the pages of history.
As we're about to wrap it up, maybe let's touch a little bit before we come back home to close off the conversation. Russia, Ukraine, Zelensky was just in the Oval Office. He was humiliated by Trump and Vance. Is there peace coming? He went there to sign the minerals deal. He ended up not signing it. Europeans, he went straight there to go meet that delegation. And it looks like they are on Zelensky's side. But then recently again, it came out that it seems like he's saying, okay, cool.
Americans are not honest. Maybe let's just put it on record.
Yeah.
Americans are liars. You can't trust them even when they say, give me a glass of water. You can only trust them after they drink the water. It is in Putin's speeches where they agreed to the non-expansion of NATO within Eastern Europe. They had agreed that we are not going to come close to Russia. And behind Russia's back, the Ukraine government decides to apply for status within NATO. Now, this is quite interesting because Americans will not be able to appreciate this maybe until they hear it from a foreigner.
Yeah.
That America put Cuba on sanctions to date. Cuba is on sanctions. For one reason.
For many years.
Ask me why.
Why?
Because they allowed Russia to have its station close to American borders. And Americans would not tolerate Russia having its camp in Cuba. Looking at Miami.
With NATO, the very same thing they're trying to do in Poland. Well, they've done it in Poland, in Ukraine.
Looking at Miami from Cuba, from Havana, you can see Miami. And they knew that if Russia could put its station here, their security is no longer safe as Americans. But how then do the Americans think that they can walk into Ukraine, into Donetsk? I was there, by the way, into Russia, into Ukraine. Donetsk, which is actually a stone throw away from Russia. And America wants to put its station through, of course, the default of Ukraine, which is a similar American battle where as long as battles are fought in other people's countries, then war is good. Maybe a day is coming very soon with China putting lots of satellites in the air. Can I say a prophecy?
Please say it.
Can I say a prophecy?
You already said the prophecy of MK and it became true. Please say it.
In our generation, we are going to see war taking place on the American soil from the sky. China is now able to spy on America without Americans even doing anything about it. And these drones and these all what that are being shot into the air, they are there for spying purposes. Data is just one of the issues. And now, as of last week, China has produced a machine that has been put in the air that is 1 million times faster than the best of what Elon Musk has in terms of collecting data. It's now in the sky. Now, America has always been good at fighting wars in other people's countries, and no one has challenged America on their own soil. Because as long as you read on news that so-and-so has died, so-and-so has died, it doesn't bother you. So what America is doing in Ukraine, they will not allow Russia to do in Cuba. And Zelensky, being stupid, he allowed his own economy and people to be sacrificed on the international political terrain. I call that man a fool who would allow and watch his own brothers and sisters being killed, trying to fight a war between Russia and America. Stay away when the elephants are fighting. You know the proverb? When the elephants are fighting, grass suffers. And unfortunately, the grass is Zelensky. His agricultural system is collapsed. His minerals have collapsed. It will take him another 30 to 40 years to recover. Because all the weapons that America donated at more than $2 billion per day for the past 3 years, it is a debt that is coming up on Ukraine, which they have to pay through their own minerals and resources. He sold 2 generations down. He will not recover.
What does
Ukrainians will become refugees in Europe. Mark my words. And America will take over their mines. And no one will be interested in Ukraine. But Russia is managing and watching at a distance. That war will continue. It's another Palestine simmering. Seek the ways of peace.
You're saying he should have stayed away when 2 elephants fight, the grass suffers. As much as Umadiba, when he passed, he said, we are not free up until Palestine is free. Some South Africans also say, besingena ngani Israel ukuthi siyise ICJ to the Hague. Was that a good idea, or we were supposed to stay away from Israel and Pakistan, the Palestinian issue?
Bona uMadiba ibenokubamba isignal sometimes imphunyuke. Lapho beyibambile. He was on the right thing. Until Palestine is free, we are not free. What he is saying, Madiba, is if we can watch Americans sponsoring Israel to destroy Palestine, it's a matter of time before the same Americans again will sponsor someone else to destroy you. So the fighting for Palestine is actually fighting for world justice. And by South Africa taking Israel to the Hague, it's not for Palestinians. It's for ourselves. That if we allow the bulldog to do what it is doing and no one deters it, it's a matter of time. Dogs eat meat. When they are done with you, they're coming for me. So an injury to one, maybe Kosato is right. It's an injury to all. And justice for one should be justice for all.
And there's a rumor now that, it's a rumor, which I've seen it on a YouTube platform called Biz News. I forgot the lady's name. She's an Israeli lady who was being interviewed by Biz News, which is a local South African platform here on YouTube. They're doing really well. They've got some very interesting content there. They were saying before South Africa took Israel to The Hague, to the ICJ, apparently they met some Iranian leaders. I know that recently the ANC did post online, Umama Action posted that they were with the Iranian leaders. But the rumor says that before South Africa took Israel to The Hague, they were in Iran, and they were saying Iran gave ANC members money for them to do that. How true do you think that is?
There are no permanent enemies, no permanent friends in politics. And I think our generation, particularly the last 5 to 10 years, we're beginning to see and understand how international politics is played. And South Africa is participating in that terrain quite in an interesting fashion. Bearing in mind also that the history of South Africa is quite unique in the world, where justice meant murder and killing, peace and negotiations were found. So I think South Africa actually offers an opportunity to the world that it can be done. And this international play of politics is also financially beneficiary, that our colonizers, when they begin to see us discussing and talking to new friends and new partners, they become a bit jittery and they become a bit uncomfortable. But I think Africa right now is in a space where it should begin talking to new partners, talking to new investors, and whether South Africa got money from Iraq or from Iran, or whether South Africa did it personally, or they got money from Palestine, or they got money from Saudi Arabia, to me that's not an issue. The real issue is there justice for the Palestinian people? And there Trump, boom, comes a few days later. So he's going to build flats somewhere else and move all the Palestinians there. Is that a solution? Why? Because you want the Israelis to have the land. But no, we know. They want to put a canal and divert traffic from the Suez Canal. They want to put a new canal through Gaza to feed into the Mediterranean for their own business. So here people are dying, but what you want is a business transaction. Why not negotiate with the people? But they cannot take that canal through the Gaza without forceful removal of the people that are there. So Trump is already playing into that space of pushing them away. You already said the same statement in the Panama, that they've declared the whole of South America now into the American Gulf. That includes Panama. That they want to reclaim the canal. So looking at that canal in Panama and the canal in Gaza and the Suez Canal, we already know there's a business transaction of how do they move goods from their territory to the other territory, and politics is just window dressing. The real business here is economics. We need to ask ourselves the question, why? What is the economic benefit of the removal of the Gaza people from their homeland? What is it that they want there? And of course, just to add a cherry on the cake, I laughed also a few days ago watching Candice
Owens
and watching Macron, yeah, the president of France, and the saga in his house, whether he married Mrs. or he married Mr. or he married Mrs. or he married Mr. my father or Mr. my mother. That was complex. Yeah. I'm still trying to put my head around. I can't unsee it, but I can't. My head kind of went when bananas. Yeah, it's difficult. The world is complex. Yes,
Yeah.
it's complex. Yeah.
I'm shocked every day.
My wife, my father, or my wife, my mother, or my wife, my The Lord help us. Some of these things must remain where they are. We are still happy here. And by the way, thank you very much, Donald Trump. Thank you very much. This one is for you. The only two items we're struggling with. We have our male and female. in the world now. Thank you. This American thing was giving us chaos down here. He said, I identify. I identify. Hey, Madudu. Now what must I do? I identify as what? As a Grootman.
So you say
They call me Joshua Maponga, but I identify as Grootman. Yeah.
Trump came and said,
Let's discuss problems. There's problems. Let's not institutionalize and canonize chaos. Then, the whole libraries and books and become false, man. We do not know what to do now with our children.
What do you think was the Democrats' agenda?
Chaos.
Why would they push that to the world so much? What were they trying to achieve? What was the long game?
Over and above these alternative lifestyles and the extension of their pleasure basket around the world, that adoption of these policies then gives them freedom around the whole world. Wherever they go, they can practice as they want. And then force governments around the world to basically give them a green passport to drive around and perform whatever they want to perform with no consequences. Ultimately, on the onlook, that's the top surface benefit that was there. Because otherwise, other than that, I can see the government putting so much money to do that at no financial benefit, except that they want to harvest young children, boys and girls, and fulfill their own wicked and weird expectations. I cannot find a better word except wickedness. Yeah.
Let's wrap it up. Bishop Maponga, I missed you. This has been incredible. But in wrapping it up, let's talk about some fun.
Yeah.
I think we recorded an episode sometime last year and you told me you were filming some movie.
Yeah.
And then I hear today you're going to the premiere of the movie. It's premiering today.
Yebo.
Tell us about it.
I am king.
I'm king.
I am king. That's the title of the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm king. And history.
Okay.
Tell this story through the lips of those that cannot tell it themselves. It's an opportunity. It's a privilege to be able to share the stories of dead people who never lived to tell us what happened. The experiments who never got a chance to echo a voice. But in the reflection, we can look back and see the impact. Like Ambi and all those things, only 30 years later did people discover, hey, this thing's got mercury. And a map of Africa on their faces. Who told them that this thing was dangerous? And in as much as these vaccines came on us, but you cannot tell me that the whole world can be an experiment. I mean, what I know, with my little science, when you're doing an experiment, you put a plant here, you put another plant here. You want to see the effect of sun on a plant. This one, you cover it, 14 days. This one, you leave it open. After 14 days, here is the experiment, here is the control. Then we can look at the impact of sunlight on both plants. Now, when you take in an experiment and you cover everything, how do you measure? How do you measure progress when you've actually vaccinated everybody? Then how do you know which works and which does not work? What if this thing kills everybody? But anyway, I was told in one of the meetings that I'm not professional. But that for me, this movie is an opportunity to share an alarm of alertness, consciousness, and how money and corruption have actually become agencies of destruction amongst the African people.
So you wrote the movie?
I wrote the movie.
Okay, and then you acted in it?
I acted on it, yes.
So you're playing the king there?
But remember, it's a trilogy of 7.
Okay.
So they put the first slots in.
Nice.
The next items are coming up, but we're going to be having quite along. It's almost like a Lord of the Rings, or it's what do you call this one?
Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, all these other ones. Yeah.
It's quite a long thing. So we are introducing firstly the commercial side, but immediately the young men there in Kemba must do a reckoning and the recollection and etc. Then the elements of the ancient will start working in, and so it was intelligently programmed so that we don't burst the bubble. But it will be very, very interesting to check in there. And I'm putting my foot in there, and I'm doing this for all the young people in the country. There's no limit to your dreams and visions. I woke up one morning, I've never held a camera in my hand. I don't even know where to press start and go, where cut and what, but here we are. Elected already for one of the awards in the country. I'm humbled and I'm grateful.
And you've just came out of Kenya. You've just won Pan-Africanist of the Year award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Multi-talented man. You never limit yourself. You play the mbira very well. You sing. I know you do that for fun. You have not really done the music industry professionally, but it's beautiful.
But I must talk to you. I must just do one.
You have to.
I must do a single. Just.
That's what I wanted to say.
Sit.
Yeah.
Because I need to clean up your ears also, you guys.
Yeah.
I know you share piano, hey, but funny thing into a
I was listening to some of the songs you were playing for me behind the scenes of you playing the mbira on your Kenyan videos. And you played so well, and those are beautiful songs, by the way.
Thank you.
But I'm glad that you're also exercising and expressing yourself through film. And I think film lives forever. And that's how Hollywood has been able to colonize the whole world, working psychologically.
So we hope that people who have money also, they must never undermine the power of media.
Yeah.
Never. Let's not just complain sometimes. Hope like Bomtsepe, Bomakozoma, Tokyos, the Ramaphosas of this world. Come on, guys. Look into this space of propaganda. Good propaganda. Education. Re-education, enter and attain, edutainment. Take it upon yourselves that before you go away, we'll not remember you for how many bulls and ancoles you had at your farm. We'll remember you for the information that you left between our 2 ears.
Farmers of thought. We missed you. It's so good to see you.
A pleasure. Great pleasure.
We love you.
Anytime I'm in town.
Danko.
I come.
The great Bishop Maponga.
Makos.
Danko. Magwani.
Fumanibo.
Siyavuma. See you guys on the next video. Yo. Yo.
You happy?
Joe, it was way too short. He went in, eh?